YouTube in just about 10 seconds. YouTube in just about 10 seconds. There we are. Okay, I think we are ready to go. Okay, so good morning. I think this is our first ever morning FMBR meeting. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. I hope you have your coffee and are for those of us on the West Coast. But thank you for joining us. My name is Judy Kitt. I'm the president of the Foundation for Mind Being Research, or FMBR. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization, all volunteer run. We have been exploring the bridges between science and consciousness for almost 43 years now. And we're based in the San Francisco Bay Area. We have a website, fmbr.org, and we have a YouTube channel. It's FMBR TV. We encourage you to check that out. So we are very honored to have my dear friend, Connie Grauds, with us again. Connie is a pharmacist by education, a natural medicine expert by training, and a healer by apprenticeship. Her inspired life and the inspiration for her many books has spanned 26 years of apprenticeship in the Amazon jungles of Peru with one of the last original authentic indigenous Amazon jungle shamans. Connie teaches these ancient ways of the healing and life-giving spirit of passion with passion and creativity. And the life-giving spirit of passion and creativity that exists within each of us to become the medicine the world needs, which is just so important right now. And Connie, really welcome. I'm so excited to have you back here. I think it was 10 years ago. Let me go, it was 10 years ago that you were here. And we're just so happy to have you back and in this forum where you can just teach us again your wonderful wisdom.
Thank you so much, Judy. It's so good to be here with you. Jerry Jin, if you're watching, hello to you too. We've known each other, all the folks at FMBR for 10, 15 years, and new friends, old friends that are tuning in this morning, hello. We're about to take a wonderful trip to the Amazon jungles of Peru together this morning or this afternoon, wherever you're calling from, and to learn about the science and spirit of how nature heals. As you enjoy these beautiful slides and take this journey with me, my first trip to the Amazon rainforest was 26 years ago. I took this photo out of the window of the plane on my first trip to Iquitos, Peru, for a pharmacist continuing education program about the medicinal plants of the rainforest. Little did I know I would end up spending 26 years there apprenticing, as Judy was saying. In the town of Iquitos, of course, what I was taken with upon landing is the fact that these people live with herbal medicine, even in the streets of Iquitos per se, certainly in the jungles as well. And so what I'm here to teach you is not only what I learned from the shaman, but also how we can take that forward, each and every one of us, to become the medicine the world needs. Let's just set the tone for a moment. Just relax back. It's very interesting how nature is such a part of our consciousness as we weave ourselves through life. We often say we grow like weeds in childhood. We blossom as we mature. We go to seed as we age. New ideas are planted in our minds where they germinate, take root, flower, or wither. It's an amazing thing, isn't it, to see how nature, in its many ways, is just such a part of our consciousness. We leaf through books. We turn over leaves in our behavior. We collect kernels of wisdom. We follow decision trees. We get lost in the jungle of detail, and we can't see the forest for the trees. I'm certain if we scratched our minds a little more, we'd hear ourselves speaking in this way in our daily life. Shamans are healers of the sick and keepers of the forest. Healers of the sick, of course, we understand that. And shamans are keepers of the forest because they grow the medicinal plants. They make sure that the people of the jungle have enough food, that they have enough, the trees, the plants, the vines, and so forth, that are part of their tradition to keep the community healthy there, not only of body, but of mind and spirit as well. I call myself a plantista. That is to say, I know about medicinal plants that heal. I also know about plants that expand consciousness. That's part of the shamanic apprenticeship here. But the modern term here in our today's world, I'm coining as plantista. Eco-healing, wow, is the new term in our modern psychology today. Shamanism is the venerable term, the honored term of history of what we're going to be learning here today, the term shaman. And our new modern term for it is eco-healing. It's our contemporary term. And what we're going to be talking about today is the science and spirit of why and how deep ecology is a spiritual practice for each and every one of us. You don't have to use the word shaman. You don't have to be following a shamanic path. You just simply substitute the modern terminology for shamanism to eco-healing. And as a matter of fact, as I'm talking and sharing some of the secrets and the teachings of the shaman, of course, I don't do this out of cultural appropriation. I do this out of cultural appreciation. So just bear with me as we learn some of the lessons together that I learned in the 26 years of my apprenticeship there. We're going to talk about the medicine of nature, the magic of nature. And most of all, as I said, the drumbeat behind all of this is the deep ecology as your spiritual practice. You know, the story kind of in our modern world about some of the science behind, you know, how and why nature heals and the spirit of nature began in about 1976 or so. Peter Tompkins wrote a book called The Secret Life of Plants. What he wrote about was this man named Cleve Baxter, who was the originator of the polygraph machine. And one day, Cleve Baxter, as he's walking through his living room, thinks to himself, I wonder if I put the electrodes on the plant in my living room, will they have the same reaction as humans do? You know, the electrodes, when they're put on our body, you know, measure galvanic response, change in blood pressure, you know, energy, so on and so forth. Well, lo and behold, as he found out that the plants were seemingly reading his mind and his moods. And he thought, I must be crazy. You know, I'm a scientist. I invented the poly. I think what I'm going to do is run a deeper experiment. So in my study, separate from the living room where the plants grow, where my plants grow in the living room, in my study, I'm going to take an aquarium, put some shrimp brine in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to zap the shrimp brine in the aquarium in my study, separate from the living room where his houseplants had electrodes on it. Guess what? As the shrimp brine were being electrocuted, the plants went crazy. You know, their polygraph was going all over the place. So as Peter Tompkins was writing about this, and what Cleve Baxter discovered and wrote this book. Oh, it was poo-pooed, the book, the concept that can't be true. But we all know that in science, there has to be the first person to stir the pot, right? So now, very interestingly, The Secret Life of Plants is back in print because we have the science behind the spirit of all of this. That's what we're going to be talking about here today. And thanks to Peter Tompkins and Cleve Baxter to be the forerunners of what we're going to talk about here today. They're really in charge of getting this conversation started about plants and consciousness. You know, flora is intimately related to humans and animals. You know, it just simply is. Many of you who are coming this morning probably know of these people that I'm going to talk about in their research. But as we put it together as a whole, it'll start to make a pattern here. Monica Gagliardo was one of the pioneers with plant bioacoustics, that plants respond to sound waves and vibrations. You know, and we've often said that there's someone in the neighborhood who has a green thumb, or they've run experiments. If you play gentle concert music to plants, they grow and thrive. If you play music to plants that is discordant and disharmonious, the plants wither. So indeed, Monica was one of the first to run the science behind all of that. And many of those of you here this morning are aware of Paul Stamets. You may have seen his movie, Fantastic Fungi. Paul Stamets was one of the originators of fungus mycology research and how fungus really helps the people and the planets, and that it's central to the immune systems of all that grows. And just like people, mushrooms are bridges between the flora. In other words, the trees and the plants. And do see the movie if you haven't, Fantastic Fungi. And his research is stunning. Suzanne Simard it really discovered the idea and did the research behind the mother tree. The mother tree that grows in forests is responsible for taking care of the little saplings. As a matter of fact, she did the research on what seems intuitive to us here, of course, that the trees are even interrelated in their roots, and often through the fungus, often through the mushrooms and that kind of root and mushroom relationship there. What happens is the mother tree takes care of the little saplings, just like human mothers. Okay, the little saplings need to know if this is a dry season, the mother tree sends out hormones and chemicals and signals. This is how you live when it's a drought. If it's too rainy and so forth, the mother tree sends out, this is what you do when it's too rainy, and this is what's happening. Or this is what you need to do when there are special beetles and things that are coming to eat you. The importance of this kind of work, that there is a mother tree, of course, makes intuitive sense to us when we're talking about deforestation and then replanting trees. If in deforestation, it's nice to have the idea that we can replant trees in that open acreage, you know, but the point of the matter is, without the mother tree, what happens is the little saplings are weaker. So when you replant a deforested area, there's no mother tree. And we need that mother tree, just like we need the human mothers to help all of that grow properly. Michael Pollan, of course, many in this group have read his book, Botany of Desire, or seen his Netflix movies and so forth on how to change your mind, the psychedelic substances and the research on all of that. But back to the Botany of Desire. He was the first one who suggested the idea that rather than us growing the plants, like we are growing cornfields, we are growing roses, we are growing this, what Michael, you know, this and that, what Michael said is, wait a minute here. No, the plants are very clever. They grow so beautiful like a rose and colorful and aromatic that the plants with their sexiness of the rose, entices us, the humans, to grow more roses, right? And if the corn plant grows corn and we eat the corn, then we grow more corn. Lo and behold, the plant is saying, wow, I provide food for you. Don't you want to grow more of me? So who's in control here? You know, we often think it's the other way around, but the point of the matter is we just have to realize we're in this cycle together. And interestingly, how I came to apprentice with Don Antonio, the shaman here in the picture, is in the pharmacy continuing education trip. Of course, we had professors from the half a dozen professors from America come with us in this continuing ed trip, teaching us about, you know, ethnobotany, teaching us about biology, teaching us about the flora and the fauna and so forth. And of course, there was a special lecture, a little presentation the day before we left about this shaman. And I didn't know what a shaman was. You know, I graduated from the College of Pharmacy. We don't learn about shamans in pharmacy school, but that's a whole other story that we will cover some other time. The point is, one of the professors called me and said, Connie, after the continuing education trip was over, one of the professors called me and said, Connie, do you have any students that would like to come down and help the shaman grow a medicinal plant garden for a month? I'm leaving some money behind to a nonprofit effort to help him establish this medicinal plant garden. So I said, yes, I want to go back to the Amazon. I want to go back to this place that was so life-giving. Not only in addition to what the professors were teaching me, but more importantly, I was just taken by the awesomeness of this greatest expression of life on earth. You know, you've all been in places, whether it's canyons, mountaintops, gorgeous lakes, whatever it is, that are simply breathtaking. And that's the way it was for me. And to begin with, of course, in helping Antonio make a medicinal plant garden, of course, the pharmacist in me was learning about medicinal plants, and medicinal plants, as we know, have active ingredients, you know, like our aspirin and Aleve and so on and so forth. So it made intuitive sense to me when he was first active ingredient in the medicinal plants. And as a matter of fact, I told the shaman, I'm a straight A student. You could just speed up this apprenticeship because, you know, I'm really smart. I'm taking all of these notes. This plant does this, that, and the other thing. And he looked at me and laughed. And he said, whoa, slow down here. The first 3 days of my apprenticeship with him, he said, I want you to sit in this hammock and be quiet. I don't want to hear a word from you. Leave your pens and pencils, you know, back in your room. Just lie in the hammock. Quiet down. This is an important lesson for all of us, but I had to learn it because I was trying to learn it with my head, right? I was trying to apprentice with my brain in my notebook. And apprenticing, which we're all going to talk about, you know, eco-healing and you as apprentices to your backyard and the power that's inherent in all of that, is about becoming sensitive enough by quieting down. Why do you think the shamans and the gurus around the world, you know, live in temples or live way deep in the forest somewhere, you know, away from the busyness of, say, you know, downtown, you know, Manhattan, New York City? And then at the end of the 3 days, he said to me, he said, I have nothing to teach you. You know, I have nothing to say to you to teach you what your first lesson is. I want you to go into the Amazon rainforest and don't come back till the trees talk to you. That's your first assignment. Now, as a pharmacist, I'm going, trees talk to me? I mean, how does this all happen? But that was the first assignment. Can you be quiet and still enough? And can you be sensitized enough to hear what these trees and plants and so on and so forth have to say? And so I'm really confused at that time about what apprenticeship is. But of course, the scientist in me is always curious as to what is the proof behind this, right? I mean, there are scientists in this group too. There are also those of you who know this to be true anyway. I'm just simply saying, as we put this in a bundle of proof of the science around it, that science indeed is now proving what the shamans have already known. The National Institute of Health, our famous research in the US, has shown, on their website, they give the research for what nature connections do for us. First on their list, they say nature connection is the sights and sounds and smells. Interesting. This is a new article by the National Institute of Health, but the sights and sounds and smells, the shaman taught me 26 years ago when I thought, what is that going to show me? But this is proof here that nature connections here, and essential oils, of course, make sense. The aromas that go, into our nasal passage, into our bodies, to heal. Certainly taste, growing your own food touch. This is all NIH research here. You can look online and see they've done the research behind it and how human beings are connected. Petting your pets. Cats and dogs or whatever our pets are, don't you feel more connected when you're petting your cat or your dog or petting a neighbor's cat or dog? You just do. Guess what? You can feel more connected to plants and trees and all of nature, birds and so on and so forth. Of course, there's the negative ions that are part of nature too, which stimulates our immune system. And of course, nature helps us with seasonal affective disorder. We all know this. What I'm saying is the NIH is coming on board now and proving what the scientists in a scientific way, what the shaman was trying to tell me day one of my apprenticeship. So we're making, as the weeks are going by, we're making signs, and here's this wonderful tree that I became so fascinated with. On the side, you'll see these ginormous caterpillars, little striped caterpillars going up the side of this medicinal tree. And Don Antonio says to me, he said, there's a spirit. The spirit of the medicine of that plant lives in there. As a matter of fact, he took out a piece of bark cloth, a painting that he had done, that the shaman had done of this tree. He said, when I look at this tree, this is what I see. I see the spirit of the tree. And of course, you see those little caterpillars there too. Yeah. He said, I see the spirit of the tree. I'm kind of going like, how do I see the spirit of trees? How should we all see the spirit of trees? What's the point? Just give me the active ingredient. That's where my head was at the time. So the shaman was always telling me in these medicinal plants, as I'm helping him plant for that month, these plants and these trees have powerful spirit doctors. Of course, the science is looking active ingredients, powerful spirit doctors, active ingredients. What does it all mean here? There's another medicinal plant, a medicinal vine, and Don Antonio was teaching me about the cat's claw. And you can see on this vine, there's a hook. And he said, the spirit of the cat's claw is a big, dark monkey spirit. And that monkey spirit knows how to take that hook. He said, the plant is very, very smart because it's a little vine. And of course, in the canopy of the Amazon, there's no sun way down at the floor level, at dirt level. So this little smart little vine hooks its hook around a limb of a tree next to it that's growing to the sun, and it gets an elevator ride to the sun. So, the shaman says, what a strong little plant. And as a matter of fact, we've taken the bark and researched it. Cat's claw is extremely good for the immune system. And we've done the research for all of that up here. You can look up the medicinal benefits as far as we would understand it. And the shaman is saying there's a monkey spirit in there. And so I'm going, I don't see any monkey spirit. But the point is, as I began to think about it, and science is always talking about active ingredients, and what we do as a scientist is we make those chemicals, symbols. Like here's the caffeine, with the benzene ring and the hydroxyl group sticking off to the side. We say, aha, this is where the power is. The shaman says the active ingredients are in the spirit doctors of that tree or plant. And as a matter of fact, here's a little drawing, of course, a little pencil drawing of the monkey. So the shaman sees the monkey spirit, and we see this strange, what must be really strange to the shaman, this, this benzene ring and all these hydroxyl groups. The shaman is saying, you people are crazy. And we're saying to the shaman, you're crazy. We don't see any monkeys. And the shaman is saying, I don't see any symbols. And so what I began to learn over the years, of course, is that it's simply speaking different languages. It's just Italian and French. The shaman is more poetic, more earthy, and we're more chemistry. So as I began to realize that and sink into that, I began to be able to accept and figure out what he was trying to teach me of the spirits of these plants. And certainly many of you have heard the term plant spirit medicine. As a matter of fact, that was the last workshop I offered at FMBR. About shamans all over the world using plant spirit medicine, because they recognize that plants have spirit. We would say active ingredient. If we take a little look further about nature as healer, just nature in general. Remember, the shaman is telling me, lie in the hammock, be quiet, go out and let the trees talk to you. Here's an interesting little story, a little vignette about the term indigenous, how it's thought to have been coined at a time when Christopher Columbus came to this part of the world and saw these indigenous tribes, saw how they lived at one in nature. He wrote a letter back to the old world, back to Europe, and said, I have discovered a people who live in Dios, in God. In Dios became indigenous, in Dios, living in harmony with God. They certainly do. The Bora Indian tribe here too, wearing bark cloth skirts. Just the appreciation of nature. Of course, a little bit more science here before we dip into the spirit of it even further is, why do we simply feel better when we're outdoors? Is it all in our head? What is it? The healing power of outdoors. Some time ago, healthcare got involved in this and did the research. St. Michael's Hospital in Texas did a study that said rehab patients giving access to healing gardens, in hospitals, there's more healing gardens these days, returned home 2 to 3 weeks earlier, rather in 2 to 3 weeks, rather than the usual 6 or more weeks, just by being able to go out into the healing gardens. This is research. Children who interacted with healing gardens had positive influence of their attitudes in Recovery Children's Hospital in San Diego. A 9-year study, gallbladder surgery patients, post-operative recovery of a window view, showed it shortened the length of stay and less pain medicine. Just looking out your window. Even seeing nature scenes on curtains or pictures of nature help in bronchoscopy, preoperative stress, congestive heart failure, so on and so forth. So you can find nature even inside as our winter months come. You can look out your window. And of course, we all know in the dentist office, there's a tank with fish in it, right? Okay, we wonder why? It's calming. They're not having the tank there because they like fish. Well, they might, but the point of the matter is it calms the patients. Prisoners that participated in garden therapy had a smoother transition from prison to community. Green settings for ADHD children. The greener the setting, the less severe the symptoms. The longer the exposure, the less severe the symptoms. And interestingly, in this study, that it carries over a little. When you go back home for the next few days, these children with ADD, ADHD felt more relaxed. So of course, if they're feeling more relaxed, all of us would, right? Science, of course, is always looking, me, the scientist in me, in the theories and the studies, because it was certainly helping to prove what I was learning in those 26 years. But Don Antonio is always saying, nature lives in ecstatic interconnectedness. Remember what I said first slide? Deep ecology is a spiritual practice. Nature lives in ecstatic interconnectedness. We are nature. It is nature. Interestingly, we've heard a lot about the World Health Organization, of course, with COVID over the past few years, but when the WHO was writing its preamble in 1946, even then, the World Health Organization said, health is not merely the absence of disease or infirmity, it's the state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. Complete physical, mental, social well-being, not only the absent. This was far thinking at the time. It would sound like a California workshop, but the point is these are world leaders. And interestingly, one of the medical students that I had lunch with a few years ago in Iquitos, she said, oh, she didn't believe in any of this, and until she was taking this global health class in Iquitos. And she said she finally believed it when she looked up the fact that Peru life expectancy is only 2 years less than ours. So if these people who live in the jungle living off of melons and fish and just breathing in and being part of that greatest expression of life on earth, certainly they have different kinds of trauma. They have machete wounds, they have snake bites, so on and so forth. But the bottom line is they are in such harmony that there must be something to this, right? Okay. So the interface of science and spirit, there was a word that got coined not too long ago. Biophilia is the innate human instinct to connect with nature and other living beings. True? We feel better when we're around people. We feel better. Why do we feel better outside? Why do we feel better looking outside? Being around. Why do we feel better petting our pets? And the biophilic design is found that, my goodness, just like Michael Pollan was saying in his Botany of Desire, we then would like to grow more plants. That's why we have plants in our house. Yeah, well, that's why we have gardens. So because we feel better, we want more of that in our life, right? Okay, so we take walks. We just sit outside, and outside our door to the outside and sit on the chair out there. Yeah, because we want to protect. It's inherent within us that we want to. If we look back on the history of medicine and where we've come, allopathic Western medicine talks about body parts. If you have bronchitis, it's in your lungs. If you have, high blood pressure, it's in your heart. That's the way it was for a long, long time until, 30 years ago or so, the idea that the mind and the body are interrelated as it relates to Western medicines, beginning to think, oh, let's use the term holistic medicine, mind-body medicine, all of that. We're beginning to realize that this is connected. Before it was just the body parts. And now we're talking about ecological medicine. We're talking about healing in relationship with everything around us. Just as the World Health Organization said in 1946, we need to have other people. We're nature, they're nature. And we need to have our pets, our plants, our walks outside, so on and so forth. Ecological medicine. So what's happening is medicine is beginning to expand beyond simply only the body parts. We need our body parts taken care of course, but the point of the matter is we also need the whole. So this ecological medicine, there's a quote in the Bioneers, wrote the pioneering book on ecological medicine. There's a free download. You could just go to the Bioneers website on their ecological medicine section and just download their book. Simply stated, improving human health is inextricably linked to restoring ecological well-being. The interconnectedness of all life is fundamental biological truth. This group intuitively knows that to be true. What I'm saying in all of this is now there's science to show to each and every one of us, once again, to help us remember. It helps validate who we are and our thinking. It helps validate our spiritual paths and how we are. Ecological medicine, in these days, we all know by the headlines, and we know too well. We're all just the boiling frog story, where the little frog is in a lukewarm cup of water and doesn't realize it's slowly being cooked to death. And you just turn up the heat little by little, but the frog doesn't jump out because it seems to adapt to the heat. And of course, we're at that place right now. We just get used to the fact that, we have ecological disaster going on, and we're like the boiling frog story here. We're just going to be cooked to death unless we accept this on the next level. This is a call to action for everybody who's here in this workshop here this morning, because it's not only what I learned, it's not only how you are now, but this is just meant to help you make the next deeper commitment to yourself in the world around you, whatever that is for you. The shaman Don Antonio said years ago, he said, there's only one disease or dis-ease, and it's the disease or dis-ease of disconnection. So it's getting the connection back up. Of course, there are times when you break your leg, that so on and so forth. But the point is, in large, it's about disconnection. Deep ecology as a spiritual practice. Get connected. You're going to feel better. What the shamans have known to be true since the dawn of shamanism in ancient days. Dr. Lee of Asia did the research on what he calls forest bathing. In other words, you go outside and you spend time just soaking up the energies, like I did in the Amazon. He was the first scientist who proved forest bathing can boost your immune system, increase your energy, decrease anxiety, depression, and anger, reduce stress, and bring about a state of relaxation. So he did the research, once again, proving what the shamans have known and what Antonio did when he said, sit in the hammock, be quiet for 3 days, and then go out and talk to the trees. Forest bathing. We used to think it was the tree huggers, 35 years ago. What do they know? Guess what? Now we have Dr. Lee. Everyone's onto it because we've got the science behind it. And the secret to the group here, all of this good medicine, it's free. It's out your back door and it's free medicine. Just go outside or look outside or have beautiful pictures such as Judy of nature right behind you. Whatever it is, just surround yourself with all of that. It's easy. Even Cornell University now on its website has a link, evidence-based benefits of nature. And Cornell has partnered with the National Park Service. Believe it or not, the National Park Service is into this now. Nature RX at Cornell, look it up. They and the National Park Service are getting on board. And as I said, the National Institute of Health, even now, look it up online if you want, has an evidence-based nature prescription. Hence the reason for my lecture today. Nature, what's your nature prescription? Yeah, So this is all that's happening here. And what we've talked about here over the past half hour, 45 minutes, as we summarize and then move forward, of course, we learned that the plant kingdom interacts consciously with all of us. Herbs and pharmaceuticals that come from plant sources heal us. 25% of all prescriptions still dispensed today come from plant sources. 25%. Okay. Being in nature relaxes and restores. The forest bathing research. Okay. And we covered, life sciences and philosophy, the World Health Organization definition of health, biophilia and ecological medicine are being part of our languaging here now. It's being taught in schools. It's just part of the new words, the new consciousness, the new way of being. And of course, from the shamanic perspective here, there is only one disease or dis-ease, and that's of disconnection. And the fact that the power is in the healing of the sights and the sounds and the smells. And plants have powerful spirit doctors. We call it active ingredients, but they have powerful spirit doctors. Wow, a picture's worth a million words, right? Yeah. Ecological medicine, eco-healing, eco-healer. Yeah, we're not at the top of the food chain anymore. This group knows that. Interconnectedness, and therefore, that's where the richness and the reciprocity is. Eco-healing. A reciprocal and synergistic relationship with nature. If a place uplifts us, we want to in turn foster that environment, right? That's why we tend to our gardens. Otherwise, why would we bother? Yeah, we say, oh, they look pretty, but that's the point. It's still impacting us. And so what this whole talk is all about is the next level of asking all of us to become the medicine that the world needs. Now, by that, I'm not saying that we need each and every one of us to go out and save the world. That might be, what we're called to do, but at least within our four walls, within our home, in our environment, can we have that be in right relationship? Become the medicine the world needs. Oh my goodness, become the best mom, become the best teacher. Get out there, just holding these principles and, and teaching that if you're a teacher, if you're a mother, showing these kinds of, demonstrating, hopefully the science projects that kids are doing in grade school and high school now will have some kind of these eco principles in them. And so, on whatever level it is, that awareness is your spiritual practice. Deep ecology, by any term, whatever you want to call it, eco-healing, deep ecology, becomes our spiritual practice. So I said at the beginning of this talk that shamans are healers of the sick and keepers of the forest. Guess what? We are eco-healers. We are healers of the sick, and we are keepers of the forest. In other words, don't we make herbal tea that makes some chamomile if somebody in our family, has got a little tummy ache? Yeah, okay. So, you may call yourself a healer if you want, if that's, your calling in life, but we just simply do it. And of course, the foods we make, what do we put in our salads and so on and so forth? We're not only healing the sick, but we're keeping our family healthy. And we're keepers of the forest by simply caring for our garden, by just deep appreciation when we walk in the forest. That's the point. As I became more and more sensitive in the 26 years of apprenticeship, as I became more sensitive to that and opening myself to the greatest expression of life on earth, that is to say, the Amazon. That's what it was certainly teaching me. And any shamanic practice does. Become more sensitive by quieting down and being part of nature more. Feeling those vibrations of those plants and trees that we talked about several slides ago. And speaking of, yes, a continuation of this talk, which is the fact that FMBR, Judy and I, are offering an Amazon workshop. You too can come to the Amazon, the greatest expression of life on earth. You can get it out your back door, but for those who are adventuresome and want to join us, some of the details are on FMBR website. It's April 29th through May 7th. We'll fill you in with the details as it says at the bottom of this slide. Please go online at FMBR website and register for the information session. So we're not going to spend time here talking about what the Amazon workshop is going to be, but we will do that in detail on January 8th, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Register. When this is over, just go on, even if you're thinking about it. It doesn't mean that you're committing. It just means you want to find out more. What is this Amazon experience going to be for you? For those of us who decide to remain at home, as we've been talking about this past half hour, all of that power is outside your back door. At the age of 50, was my first trip to the Amazon pharmacy continuing ed trip. It took that huge 2x4 of the Amazon to wake me up to the simplicity and at no cost. There's a lot of medicine outside of our doors and inside of our house with the plants and the animals that we have in our life. Many of you know, my books are on Amazon.com, but Jungle Medicine is my first initiation to the fact that there is spirited medicine. We need spirited medicine and what that is, and my initial years of apprenticeship and rearranging my thinking and my perception. That's Jungle Medicine, From Medicine to Magic. Amazon Speaks is really a collection of vignettes. I wrote this when I was living in Iquitos for many years. And it's just vignettes, little wonderful stories of the Amazon. It's not necessarily a beginning, middle, and end story, but just you pick up the book and read the first vignette or the middle vignette or the end vignette and just get inspired by all of this. And my most recent book, just recently published, Amazon Medicine Woman, the holy high adventure and ordeal of paying the gods. 26 years in the Amazon jungles is not without its, as any apprenticeship anywhere is not without its challenges, because that's what an apprenticeship is. Are you still willing to come back if it gets really tough? Is it, are you still coming back? Are you still coming back? Oh, what about if this happens to you? Threats to my body, mind, spirit. I won't, clue you in on the, take away the punchlines here. You'll have to read the book yourself, but that's what that book is about, is really the holy high ordeal of paying the gods in the 26 years. And it actually was written in great deep respect for the shaman Don Antonio, who passed away a few years ago. So that was the inspiration for writing the book at this particular time, 80 some years old, and just writing the whole story of what happened in all of this. The primary lesson in my apprenticeship here, and for all of us, as you get from reading this holy high ordeal Amazon Medicine Woman book, I'll just summarize here. There was a time a couple years into my apprenticeship, the shaman took me deeper into the jungle, sat me on a stump and said, "This apprenticeship is not working." Oh, I was just completely mortified, because I had followed all the rules like a good, pharmacist, like a good scientist, like a good student. I had done everything. And he held up his hand just like this, just like the picture there. And he said, "You're focusing on my elbow. This is as far as you've gotten here. You're doing all the dietas and disciplinas perfectly, the diets and disciplines and so forth. And you're looking to me to give you these answers. And what I'm trying to show you is this." All the healing power of nature and the universe around you. Once you connect with that, that's where the shamanic power comes from. Quieting down, becoming sensitive enough. Feeling that, being able to establish a relationship with that. the spirit doctors you'll read about in the book and so forth. I'll just let you read that in the book and we can talk about that some other time. But I'm here to simply say, to summarize, deep ecology is the ultimate spiritual practice by its many names. You can follow Indian, African, so on and so forth, Amazonian, whatever it is. But underneath it all, if you pay attention, there's always a nature or the energy of the cosmos around us, right? Okay, and opening up more and being more sensitive to that. So I invite all of us to get to this part, which he shocked me so much at the time. He just shocked me behind the elbow, and all of a sudden it began to happen for me. And so just personally, as we end this wonderful time together, in addition to coming to the Amazon, of course, I offer, eco healing Zoom classes in all of this on whatever level it is that you care to participate in. And essentially, once again, by its many names, deep ecology is the spiritual practice. It is our modern shamanism. And so, Judy, I want to turn this over to you to help us with some questions or comments, please. I'd welcome that. And don't forget, folks, as soon as this is over, I'd recommend you go to FMBR website right now while it's in your mind and just click on the I want to know more about the Amazon trip. If that's what you're interested in, please do that so that we can send you the link when the time is right. Judy, what do we got for questions and comments?
Thank you, Connie. That was really wonderful. I have a question from me first.
Good.
When you spent 3 days in a hammock, which I assume you did, you went out into the forest, what was your first experience of a plant talking to you, and what did it say?
Well, yeah, just to back up, very good question. Certainly in the hammock, the first day and a half was struggling with my mind to say, this is stupid. I'm paying all this money and going halfway around the world to have him, have me lie in a hammock here? Wait a minute here. I'm paying for this. Teach me something, give me something that I can write down. So part of it was just being quiet enough. So then, as I got out into the jungle, and once again, the healing is in the sights and the sounds and the smells, and I began to the forest or any deep walk anywhere, but this is where I was. It began to come alive. The shaman had already pointed out some medicinal plants. That's where we got our plants and trees, that we planted in the garden. It became alive. So my first experiences were just about the fact before that had happened, I would have said, it's just a tree. If somebody were a tree hugger, I would say, that's just a tree. What are you doing? So all of a sudden, things became sacred. Year number, moving fast forward, year number, 4 or 5, when it started in a deep shamanic apprenticeship, where the actual spirit doctors of nature would come to me and they would diagnose the person in front of me and they would heal the person. In other words, I was beginning to get the trick or the gift, I should say, of shamanic apprenticeship is, then you take that even more deep. The first thing is the first few days is recognizing it's sacred and alive. That's what happened to me. It wasn't so much a voice. But what happened over time then is, like I said, year 4 or so, then all of a sudden here come the human-sized spirit doctors, male, female, which would diagnose and prescribe. And, and I wondered who these apparitions were. And they said, we're the healing forces of nature that you as a little bebita shamana, a little, apprenticeship shaman, are beginning to learn to, harness. And more on all of that in our classes, continuing Zoom classes here. But the point is, very good question, because that's what first happened, is just the feeling of the awesomeness and sacredness. The actual spirit doctors came about year 4. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Donna Lee was saying your hammock experience reminded me of the realization after years of backpacking in the California wilderness. It took 2 to 3 days of being immersed in nature and away from the noise of busy urban life, a whole different way of being emerged, emerging quality, a quieting, and it was magical. So that was my experience. So I just got back from the Amazon in September, and that was my experience as well. Just being in that place of deep rest, unlike anything, which is kind of funny because, as you mentioned in your book, which I'm reading, the rainforest can be a very dangerous place, right?
Oh.
And I'm standing there thinking, in a quarter-mile radius, there's probably 1,000 things that could kill me here. Yep. But there's this kind of deep sense of connection and almost a homecoming. And
that's it.
I had an experience where I did hear a voice, actually, because when I was there, they said, okay, so this is you're just relaxing. You're just kind of introducing yourself to the forest, right? This is a getting to know you kind of time. And so in my mind, I'm going, okay, getting to know you. Hello, my name is Judy. I'm, it's like wanting to introduce myself, right?
Right.
And I did hear something in my head that said, I already know you. Oh. And I started to cry.
That's it.
Right. And I thought, oh my gosh. So, and I was only in the rainforest for, I think, 5 days, but it felt like weeks of kind of just rejuvenation,
I just got back from the Amazon in October as well, with another group. And oh my gosh, just sitting, yes, many expeditions and boat trips and so on and so forth, and treks in the jungle, but just sitting by the river and quieting down there, just being quiet. Suddenly everything opened up. And, for the past month, it's just like there's more spirit in my life, more openness, more connections, more the law of attraction, or whatever you want to call it, is beginning to happen just by being opened up to that connectivity to something greater than yourself by its many names. And certainly by your beautiful story here, would you not say that deep ecology is the ultimate spiritual practice, Judy?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And the ultimate healing.
Oh,
right.
Amen.
So I have a couple of questions. One, the first one that came through from Heather said, what makes a mother tree? From Susan Smirard's work.
Yes.
Finding the mother tree.
It's just the oldest one. It's the oldest one. So you can look up her work for the scientific term, but essentially, to make a long story short, it's the oldest standing one. And so when we go in these fields, as I said, and we think we're doing okay because we need the lumber, and then we'll just replant. There's no original mother that knows the ways. Yes. The wisdom of the elders. Yeah.
Exactly. And Suzanne, she demonstrated scientifically that the mother tree shares their excess carbon and nitrogen with the younger ones through a mycorrhizal network.
Yes,
with the whole understory, with the trees around her. So let me see. So there's a lot of comments coming in about just, people's experiences in nature. Elise is curious about the practical stuff. Another scientist. Hey, hi, Elise. I just have to say, kind of parenthetically at the end, Connie, your first book, Jungle Medicine, was really, and it was years and years ago when I read it, because I was feeling called to study this kind of way of being in the world, right? And it bumped up against my scientific brain. I kept saying, but I'm a scientist. And I thought the two were mutually exclusive. And so when I read your book, it really just kind of opened a pathway for me. And I want to thank you again for that. Elise wants to know, 26 years, were you living full time in in the jungle, and how did you speak with the shaman? Was it English or some other language or some other type of communication?
Sure, sure. To begin with, of course, I would just make a return trip to the Amazon. You know, my life was in America, and I would make a return trip for several weeks to the Amazon 2 or 3 times, a year. And Don Antonio, the shaman, had said, "Let's go slow. We don't want to break you open and cause distress in your life. But the point of the matter is, let's just go slow." And as a matter of fact, the first time he said, "Why don't you come back in a year? Just let this sink in, practice this being," because I wanted it to be, like this. Teach me the 10 principles, the 5 ways. I was just going to write it all down because I thought it was a head job. And he's just saying, practice these simple things. Of course, it gets more complicated. So then all of a sudden, year 4 or 5, whatever, people wanted to come with me to the Amazon, and pretty soon more groups and more people were interested. So to make a long story short about, when I lived there, I eventually got an apartment in Iquitos, because why fly back and forth to the United States if the next group is coming in 3 or 4 weeks? So, I had an apartment there. And then recently, for the past half a dozen years, I was living in Iquitos full time. I just managed to come back to the United States right before the borders closed about 2.5 years ago because of COVID. It was the pharmacy students from Ohio Northern come every March. And we hadn't even heard of COVID yet. It was just, a vague word in the newspaper. And all of a sudden, we just made it back in that trip 2.5 years ago when the borders closed. So now I'm, full time in the US. But prior to that, it was a half a dozen years of living in Iquitos. So it just became a process of back and forth. One of the things for me, just to add as an important sideline to all of this, it wasn't important for me to go native. Know what I mean? You don't have to do that, or at least I didn't. What was important was for me to come back to the United States and talk about the science and the spirit. That's who I became, the person who could talk about science and spirit. The University of Minnesota Center for Spirituality and Healing put me on faculty. We want you to talk about the science and the spirit. I didn't have to be there full time. I taught a course for them, a grad course in the Amazon. So, once again, there were several opportunities for me to hold what it was my calling, is to hold the science and the spirit in a grounded but useful way for all of us in the modern world. It's not about, or it wasn't in my case, of going native. It doesn't do any good for me to just go native and live there for 26 years and not share it with the world.
Well, that was your role, really, to bridge yes, those roles, right? And I have to say, so I'm reading your book. It just came out, right? I got it a couple of days ago, and it's really wonderful because it's. I love how you say it's a high holy adventure and ordeal. And it reads it reads in episodes, right? You've organized it in episodes, like almost like a series that you're watching, and you can see it and you want to go, oh, what happens next? What happens next? So highly recommend it.
Thank you. Everything's on Amazon.com, just under my name. But anyway, it just is when you are apprenticing on that level. Of course, as you said so well a few minutes ago, Judy, there are the imminent dangers of the jungle, just right there. I won't go into detail, read the book. But the point of the matter is, and then there's the cultural differences. And then there's I could go on and on about the physical and emotional ordeals, so to speak. And the point of it is, are you still willing to come back? It gets any apprenticeship. Even here in the US under, medical school, it gets harder and harder every year, not easier. I thought it was going to get easier.
Ordeal, absolutely. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Wonderful. So, so I'm having a lot of comments just for how people have experienced this in nature, you know, this kind of communication with nature and how healing it is. Oh, Donna Lee, she mentions Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, and with updated version of the heroine's journey, right? There's this journey out into the unknown, right? To learn and grow and go through trials and ordeals, and then come back and share, right, with your community. Yep. That's the journey. Oh, Sally says she took a trip with you and it was one of her life's best experiences.
You know, as I said, come and find out. It will start to, if it isn't even already, like I said, this group already intuitively knows this, but that coming to the Amazon will deepen that experience for you. I can guarantee you. Everybody leaves just saying, I'm so changed. I can't even describe it. I don't even know what to say. I don't have words. You know, how do you put this into words? And how do we translate it for back home? How do we carry that back home?
How do you carry it forward? Right. Because it's really, the world needs this medicine.
It is. And as I said, I call myself a plantista, and the new modern terminology is deep ecology, eco, healing, so on and so forth. You know, shamanism, out of deep respect is the, the venerable term. It's the ancient term, and so as we move forward, how do we just put it in a language and in principles that relate to our life, our family, our community, in the greater world around us that needs our help. If not even minimally your prayers. If we believe in our spiritual practices, whatever they are, and we believe in the power of prayer, you can start now. Classes or not, books or not, pray. Can't go out and do something, whatever it is, the power of prayer. So, it'll be shown to you as you need to pray for in relationship to the healing friends, family, community, and Mother Earth as well.
Amen. So I just want to remind people, if you want to talk to Connie, if you have questions for her, she's really accessible and really responsive. Her phone number was on there, and your email is conniegrauds@aol.com, right?
Yep. We'll put that right there. Yep, conniegrauds.com. Very accessible.
And there's her phone number.
Send me a text, share your experiences. I'd love to hear all of them.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you. And thank you for being our very first morning speaker. I had texts from people on the East Coast who said, love this time. Thank you.
There we go.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us. And sign up for the information session on the 8th if you are interested in at all or thinking about coming along with us to the Amazon in April and May. And so I think this is our last talk for the year. So I just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, a Happy Solstice, or whatever it is you celebrate at the end of the year, and just wish you all blessings of health and peacefulness and just time with your family and friends, connection, laughter, love. So
I wish you tons of good jungle juju.
Yeah. Amen. Okay. Yeah. So there's just one more question.
Yep.
If you can't get to the Amazon, how can we identify places closer to home that have special power to assist us?
Right. That's what we go through in these various classes, that you can just take a class at a time here. Just try it out.
And I mean, just the oceans or yes, there are so many power places around. Spend time in nature. Spend time in nature over the holidays. It'll soothe your soul. Okay. Thank you to everyone for joining us, and we'll see you in 2023.
Thank you so very much, Judy and FMBR.